So the device we're going to look at today was sold to one of my viewers as an isolation transformer. He bought it off eBay and sent me a picture of it, and I said, you know what? I don't think that is an isolation transformer. He sent it to me and said, can you take a look at it and let me know? Here it is. This is a Superior heavy-duty color line adjuster. It's made by Superior Electric, Montreal, Canada. And what it does is this will allow you to add a 10 volt drop or a 10 volt boost to your output. And I got to thinking, you know, this is the transformer. But is this an isolation transformer? Is this output isolated from the input? It's possible. It could be a full isolation transformer, but it might not be. How we're going to determine whether it is or isn't is we're just going to take the meter and we're just going to measure between the electrical plug, which as you can see it's not polarized, and the output. And we'll try it. Let's measure both pins and see if either one of these has got continuity, because we should have no continuity at all. And as you can see, we have continuity. So this is not an isolation transformer at all, but we can probably make it an isolation transformer, because I'm sure that it probably is isolated. It's just that they've attached the neutral to the neutral on the plug. So let's open this thing up and take a look at what's actually inside this unit, because we know it's going to be a transformer and it's going to have at least 2 taps on it. So we'll just remove the screws. Then we can lift off the cover. And what we'll see inside here is, in fact, it's got a transformer. It's got a secondary and a primary winding. Now, what I'm wondering is whether this is just whether it is a full transformer or whether it's just a choke. And I have a feeling that this is just a choke. I don't see a separate winding on this unit at all. We can see that our neutral line here is connected directly to the line. Here's our line coming in, and one wire is connected directly to the other one, so there's no isolation there. And that's going to this black wire on the transformer, and it looks like the other 2 are just outputs. So this is just a coil. This is not a full transformer. This is just a boost and drop coil. When we throw it one way in the normal position, our wire is bypassed. Here's our input here. They got construction going on in front of my house. They're changing the water main, so they're digging up the street. But here's our input coming in. As you can see, the input here is going to this position on the switch. And here's our output. So in the normal position, we're just passing the AC straight through to the output. And when we switch it to the down position, we're switching it to the yellow wire, and when we switch it to the boost position, we're switching it to the black wire. So this is not an isolation transformer. If somebody tries to pass one of these things off and tell you that you've got an isolation transformer, it is not. And you are no means safe servicing with one of these. All this is going to do is boost your voltage up by 10 volts or drop your voltage by 10 volts. What these were popular for back in the days of tube televisions really wasn't an issue once we moved to the solid state TV, but back in the days of tube televisions, especially if you're out in a more rural area, the voltage would fluctuate. And depending on the time of day, your voltage could be higher than 120 volts, or your voltage could be lower than 120 volts. In fact, probably when this was around, the voltage was 110, because our voltage at our outlets used to be 110, and then they bumped it up to 120. But back in the day, especially if you were in a more rural area and had many houses on the street transformer, or if you were out in the country, the voltage would be low. So what that would cause on your old black and white, or even not so much the color sets, because they had a little better high voltage regulation, but the black and white TVs didn't. So if the voltage was low coming in, your B plus would be low from your power transformer, which would result in low voltage, and it would cause your picture to shrink. And especially at dinner time, when everybody was cooking dinner and they had the electric range going, your picture would get small. So what people would do is they would buy one of these line adjusters, and that way they could boost the voltage up to a 10 volt boost, and that would restore the width of their picture. Or in off-peak times when people weren't cooking dinner, if you were close to the substation or you were close to the distribution transformer, your voltage might be a little too high. So then you could turn your voltage down. So this way you had a three-way position. You had normal, 10 down, and 10 boost, and off. You could actually shut the power off. So normal, 10 down, and 10 up. That's what this was designed for. That's what it does. It's not an isolation transformer. You cannot substitute it for an isolation transformer. I wanted to do this video because I didn't know whether this was isolated or not. I've had people tell me, oh, just use a line, use one of those line booster things, because that's an isolation transformer, and I didn't think it was going to do anything. I was pretty sure that it wasn't an isolation transformer, but until we actually measure it and verify that it's not, you can't say, right? So now we can say with certainty that this unit here is not an isolation transformer. It cannot be used as an isolation transformer. If someone tries to pawn one of these things off to you as an isolation transformer, now you know they're not. You don't have any safety whatsoever. An isolation transformer totally isolates you from the line. Let's take a look at the schematic of this unit so we can understand the differences. Now, the reason that I'm doing this video is because this unit was sent to me by a viewer who bought this off of eBay as an isolation transformer. And he sent me a picture of it, and he says, is this an isolation transformer? And I said, well, it might be, but I don't know whether it's isolated or not. So he sent it to me and says, well, here, you can have this and do a teardown on this thing. So what this does, after looking at the internals on this, you've got your AC line coming in, and you've got it going to a switch. And the switch, you've got this coil. And your AC line comes in, and one side of it goes to one tap on the coil. And the coil goes back to the switch. And then you've got your neutral. This is your neutral. This is your line. And your neutral is going to your plug. And then the switch itself is able to switch between 3 different terminals. Actually, I drew this wrong. This should be going to the terminal here. This goes to the terminal, not to the wiper. The wiper goes to the line. So when in the normal position, when it's off, it's open. In normal position, it's connected to the line, and in the boost position, it's connected to one, and in the drop position, it's connected to the other. That is how this works. There's no isolation whatsoever. This is just a coil. A real isolation transformer, on the other hand, has your primary and your secondary. Your 120 volts goes in here, and your output. Now, the actual isolation transformer that I have under my bench, which I believe it's either an Allison or a Superior, but mine actually has 3 separate plugs on it. It has 110, or it has 10 down, normal, and 10 up. I have 3 separate plugs. So mine has 3 taps on it, and they go to 3 separate plugs. One goes to this side of the plug, the next plug here, is connected to the next winding, and the third plug is connected to the third winding. That's the transformer that I have, and I just use the normal 120 output. Mine's got a 110, a 120, and a 130 output on it. The thing is, it's totally isolated. There's no physical connection between the hot side of the transformer and the isolated side. So how my setup on my bench is that, well, I'm taking the 120 output here, and I'm putting this to my variac, and then this goes to my power bar, right? That I plug all my stuff that I'm testing into. That's how my bench is configured. So this is power coming in. I've got my isolation transformer plugged into my variac, and that goes over to there. And if I wanted to put more of a boost on my variac, I could plug it into the boost one. Actually, it might be plugged in. I should look under the bench and see which one I'm plugged into. I may have it plugged into this one so that I can get a little more voltage out of the variac. I'd have to look and see. But anyway, that's beside the point. My transformer looks very similar to this, although it's much bigger because it's a I think mine's an 800 watt unit. This is a 400. But mine's got 3 plugs. But mine is a total isolation transformer, and it is marked as such on it. Isolation transformer. So if someone tries to sell you or give you one of these things here, beware. They're not isolated in any way. And again, as I showed you before, quick, easy way to test it is just take your meter and just connect your AC cord to one side, put your probe through and touch to both terminals for that matter. Make sure it's in one of the on positions, and you should have no resistance. If you get any type of resistance like that, continuity, that's no good. You're not isolated. We have a direct connection between the input and the output. Isolation transformer won't have that. So this thing is going in the recycle pile because it's no use to me, and it's no use to anybody that's servicing electronics. Using one of these things will get you killed. We'll catch you in the next one. Bye for now.